All right, let's finish up the original Warwick Davis Leprechaun series with Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood. I like how earlier today I recorded the Leprechaun in the Hood review as I was heading to work, and now I am recording this before I start heading to bed, wearing two completely different outfits. So let's get into talking about this movie. Now, this movie yet again took a more serious route, but there's enough comedy injected here to where I had a good amount of fun. I didn't love it for sure. I can't believe that Leprechaun in Space ended up being my favorite of the Warwick Davis sequels. I'm shocked by that because my memory of this series, I remember that, especially when I talk to people, they're like, oh my God, remember the one where he went to space? That one's the worst. Maybe to you, but I just watched them all in a row, and I can tell you easily that Leprechaun in Space was my favorite of the sequels. No problem. Like, it was so much fun. So anyway, but yeah, just here's another thing that's very odd about this series, and I've said this throughout all of these reviews, but here, let me say it again. And now that it's finished, I can definitively say this. None of these have anything to do with each other. And what's more odd about that is that this is the one where they went back to the hood. So I was thinking this was going to be a sequel of some sorts to the hood, since he's going back to the hood. But yet again, completely disregards the last one and any other previous installment in any way, shape, or form. Like, the way they set up the openings of these movies, it's like a blatant disregard. It's almost like instantly trying to tell you, like, this can't be part of the last one, because like in certain ones he's like frozen in the 70s, and this one, like, it's all over the place to where when you're watching it, you're like, okay, so this one can't take place after this one because he was frozen during that time because of this necklace around him, whatever. So it's very, very interesting. Anyway, there's a really cool animation opening here. I thought it was a fun way to tell the fairy tale opening of it. It looked cool. We get the leprechaun being pulled down into hell by these hands coming out of the ground. Very Jason Goes to Hell reminiscent. The best character, the best part, the best everything in this movie belongs to the character Jamie, who also plays Radon Randall in Blue Mountain State. Let me know if you've watched that show. That show's fucking hilarious. So I was really excited to see him in this. I didn't realize he was the guy who was saying ninja and all that stuff, but pretty much every single word the guy said, pretty much every time he was on screen, I laughed out loud the entire time. So everything with him, freaking great. Most of the stuff with the leprechauns, good. The rest of the characters are there. I don't dislike them. And they weren't bad actors. They were fine. But they kind of just pushed the story along so that the movie could move to the next scene. I didn't care about anyone. I mean, the main girl, her character made some like neat decisions where she was like, you know, I'm going to share all this money to you. She'd never let the greed get the best of her, and she was trying to see people for better than they were and whatnot. But it's all about Jamie in this movie. He is the facial expressions, the affinity for pot in this movie is so overboard and hysterical. And as I said, the whole ninja thing, calling everyone ninja instead of the obvious other word, and how that plays out throughout the film, and even Leprechaun ends up saying it. I just thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious. And you got Leprechaun. Like, the Leprechaun is kind of like missing from this movie for like maybe the first 20-30 minutes, and then like he comes into the movie after the opening, of course. Comes into the movie, and the first thing he does is he grabs a bong and gets fucking high as shit. Kills the guy, wanders out into the kitchen, has like a back and forth with Jamie where he just keeps missing him by like a half a second, and then at the end gets kicked into the refrigerator without Jamie even noticing he's done it. And instead of the leprechaun protesting it or trying to get out of there after he'd been stumbling around so stoned he could barely even think, he somehow has a bong inside of there and is smoking pot inside of the refrigerator. So this is yet again, like the last movie, they just kept kind of having like a lot of drama, a lot of serious stuff, and then just throwing in like gags like that, where it was kind of just like, God, man, just keep showing my boobies. It was an odd choice yet again, and I don't think, the last guy didn't do this one, so it was weird. All right, at least I don't think he did. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think, if he did, that's even more bizarre that he wouldn't continue his series here. But this is the first one that moved away from Lionsgate, so I doubt it. One of the girls melts down the gold to make a gold tooth. I don't understand the appeal of that shit. Like, that always looks so fucking stupid. That's just a personal thing that has nothing to do with the movie. We just saw it in the movie. It looks so stupid. I don't know why people do shit like that, but to each their own, of course. There's moments in this movie where they're actually attempting horror, which I don't feel like. Maybe the first one did it a tiny bit. But one of the girls is in the bathroom and he's like breaking through the door and it's like tense and she's like waiting, and then he like pops out, and it actually like felt for like a minute like a horror movie. Like, none of these other ones feel like horror movies. They feel like parodies. They feel like goofy plays at horror, and this one actually attempted real horror for like a minute or two throughout the film. So you got that going for it here. The gold box keeps replenishing its gold, which I thought was a neat touch. I don't know how he would then, how much gold does he have, and if they just kept dumping it out, like, would he just constantly be out there forever? And the gold is what brought him back from hell, but then when he's killed with it at the end, and obviously some of that gold's still out there because they spent it all, that doesn't then bring him back out. They get to keep it. Like, I don't know, whatever. Logistics here is not worth thinking about, but it's funny to address. And we have, this is, once again, we have almost zero gore. The kills aren't that great. And it just feels like this series should have more fun kills and more fun gore, but 6 films in a row, hey. But he does rip a cop's leg off, which looks pretty funny. And then he goes to take the cop's car, jumps in the car, says like this funny one-liner before he's supposed to drive off. He can't drive off. They pan down. His feet can't touch the fucking pedals, which is funny. And then he pulls up later, and the one foot steps out of the car, and then it drops to the ground. And he used the cop's leg to drive the car. I thought that was really clever and funny. And we have a Jason Takes Manhattan punching till he's so exhausted he can't punch the leprechaun anymore, and then the leprechaun hits him once and he dies. This time it wasn't his head being ripped off, it was his heart being ripped out of his chest, but very similar. The leprechaun hides under the car like in Cape Fear, and I don't know if I don't know how many reviews of mine you watch, but I recently talked about this in a movie where a guy in Wrong Turn, he puts himself under the car, holds on, and they drive through. And I was like, he would be crushed. I'm sorry, you can't do that and not be crushed when they're driving on a dirt road. Even, like, you could hit a speed bump or a pothole or a fucking dip or anything, and the person would be dead. But whatever. In this movie, he gets under the car, and he's under there, and they have a lowrider, so they're using hydraulics in the lowrider to smash him. and that was great. And then he falls out of the, off the back of it after he smashed enough, and the phone rings and he picks it up, and it's like this dude's girlfriend who's sick of him. So he's like talking to the girl, and she's like, "Oh man, what you look like? And you have a good body?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I have a good body." And she's like, "How tall are you?" That whole conversation was really funny. So as I said, there is some good comedy here, but there's so much drama. I don't get why they did that. I think maybe they were just like, I don't want my film I want it to be taken seriously a little bit. Like I want to show that I'm like a real filmmaker. I don't know. But this isn't really, Leprechaun 4 got it right. They just had a blast. Yet again, we have the 4-leaf clover being his weakness from the first one, and his gold being the weakness from the third one. So those were kind of brought back, and I like that the guy takes 4-leaf clover, crushes it up and puts little candle wax and puts it into bullets. So there's like 4-leaf clover bullets in his gun, and the guy makes a reference to saying that, why didn't you buy a Glock? That shit always jams. And then, of course, his gun jams. But, of course, he fixes it. Saves the day. There's a scene in this movie where they go to the psychic, which she's in this movie a decent amount. And the psychic tells them that the leprechaun predates Christianity. So stuff like, crucifixes and whatnot won't work on him. But in the beginning of this movie, he's fighting a priest who sprays him with holy water, and that's how he defeats him, for them to pull him down into hell like demons and devils. And it's like he predates Christianity, but he goes down into hell and is put there by holy water. Like, did you not pay attention to the opening of your own movie? So whatever. And the psychic lady just randomly has like powers where she can like almost, she's shooting fucking magic out of her hands, and they're like having a fucking magic battle, and she locks him up with this magic whatever. It was so bizarre. This is the only time in all 6 where anyone else possesses any magic, unless they were themselves turning into a leprechaun. So interesting choice. And I think that's about it. God, Jamie saved this movie big time for me. I wonder what it would have been like without it. The character works in a beauty salon. There's an opening where they have some beauty salon stuff. I've said this a billion times before, but I'm a hairdresser, so that scene was, cool for me, just to kind of see the nuttiness of what goes on in a hair salon at times. Of course, it's exaggerated for film, but it's not far off. So that part appealed to me a little. This is, I'm glad I went back and I rewatched these for the channel. It was fun. It was a good time to talk about it. Outside of maybe like part 4 and maybe 1. I mean, obviously I'm still going to watch this Leprechaun Origins movie. But of the original 6, I don't think I would watch like 2, 3, 5, or 6 ever again. I don't have any interest, to be honest. 1 and 4 I might eventually one day, but this was a hit and miss kind of series, and it's not something I'm looking forward to revisiting. So, all right, it is time for bed. I will get to Origins soon. All right, guys, good night.